Did you know? Amid the world's barren lands where life seems impossible, there's a plant that quietly rises, carrying within it nature's extraordinary power to heal and renew. That plant is aloe vera. Once a humble desert succulent, now harvested in over 50 million plants each year, fueling a global regenerative industry worth more than $15 billion. But how did humans manage to turn the desert's survival secrets into one of the most valuable sources of renewal in the beauty world? From the sun-baked soil, each thick, cool aloe leaf is carefully hand-harvested. And in less than 4 hours, it reaches modern processing plants where natural enzymes and advanced purification technology work together to create pure, high-quality care products, from packaged aloe and detox drinks to premium moisturizing gels for export. Today, Agriculture Insight takes you on a journey where science meets nature, transforming a single aloe leaf into the secret behind global beauty. If Mexico is known as the world's aloe capital, producing over 50% of the global supply, and South Korea and the United States stand as the leading hubs of aloe biotechnology and processing, together shaping a market worth over $15 billion annually. Originating from the arid lands of East Africa and the Arabian Peninsula, this plant has evolved into a self-sustaining biological machine, capable of storing water, protecting itself, and healing even under extreme heat. Inside each thick succulent leaf lies 95% liquid, while the remaining fraction contains over 200 natural compounds, from enzymes, vitamins, and minerals to cell-regenerating polysaccharides. Aloe Vera gel, when applied to a wound on human skin, can stimulate tissue regeneration within just the first 6 hours. Americans call it the burn plant, or the miracle plant, as nearly every household keeps a pot of aloe to soothe burns or insect bites. However, did you know that this miraculous gel also hides a part humans should never use? Just beneath the leaf's outer rind lies a yellow sap containing aloin, a compound long banned by the FDA in laxative drugs, as prolonged use can cause dehydration, electrolyte imbalance, and damage to the liver and kidneys. And now let's step into the vast aloe fields of the Dominican Republic, where year-round sunshine, fertile volcanic soil, and gentle dry sea breezes create one of the most ideal places on Earth to grow aloe vera. In the Barahona region of the Dominican Republic, vast aloe fields stretch across more than 5,000 hectares, making it one of the largest aloe farms in the world. Every year, at the start of the dry season, millions of young shoots sprouting around the mother plants are carefully separated, selected, and replanted into high, sandy ridges with loose, well-drained soil. Because even a few days of waterlogging can cause the aloe's shallow roots to rot. Though aloe thrives in sunny and arid climates, it still needs just the right amount of moisture to carry out nighttime photosynthesis, a unique mechanism that allows the plant to absorb CO2 while the world sleeps. That's why farmers here install advanced drip irrigation systems, channeling water from Laguna del Rincón Lake nearby to deliver precise humidity to every row of soil. At the end of its growth cycle, usually in the second year after planting, clusters of golden-orange aloe flowers begin to rise from the center of the green leaves, standing out under the sun and breeze of the Caribbean. This marks the moment when the plant reaches its peak vitality, channeling its energy into flowering and seed formation. The blossoms attract bees and hummingbirds for pollination, helping to sustain the natural life cycle of this resilient plant from the drylands. But about 1 year after planting, aloe vera can already begin its first harvest, when the outer leaves become thick, fleshy, and filled with clear, nutrient-rich gel. From that point, the plant enters a regular harvesting cycle every 3 months, maintaining productivity for 5 to 7 years before being replaced by new crops. The process may look simple, but it's actually a race against time. Farmers use sharp knives to cut each outer leaf at the base, taking care not to damage the gel-rich tissue inside. The moment a leaf is removed, its enzymes and nutrients begin to oxidize, causing a rapid decline in quality. That's why all harvested leaves must be processed within 4 to 6 hours to preserve the highest natural concentration required by the industry. Any delay beyond that, and up to half of the bioactive value is lost, leaving the once rich gel little more than water. Before moving on to the gel extraction stage, the freshly harvested aloe leaves must go through a rigorous washing and disinfection process, a crucial step to completely remove dust and impurities. To prevent this, the leaves are placed in a washing tank filled with a diluted sodium hypochlorite solution, a mild chlorine-based disinfectant that eliminates mold and bacteria without damaging the cell structure. Inside the tank, workers gently stir the leaves with stainless steel rods to ensure even circulation, allowing the disinfectant to reach every surface while keeping the inner gel perfectly pure. After being thoroughly washed and disinfected, the aloe leaves move on to the peeling stage, the most delicate part of the entire process, where humans directly touch the transparent heart of this desert plant. To this day, the task remains almost entirely manual. Skilled workers carefully trim the sharp edges and use thin knives to slide along the green rind, separating the crystal-clear, jelly-like core. It's a craft that demands remarkable dexterity and precision. The blade must glide perfectly along the border between rind and gel, not a millimeter too deep or too shallow. Workers rely on touch to sense each leaf's curvature and thickness, maintaining steady pressure and a clean, confident cut. This discipline produces flawless, even sheets of gel, the gold standard for purity and quality before the next stage of refinement. However, in some factories, workers are now supported by automatic gel separating machines. Using a system of coaxial rollers and ultra-thin stainless steel blades, these machines can peel both sides of the aloe leaf within seconds, operating twice as fast as manual methods, while keeping the gel sheets perfectly even and intact. After being peeled, the fresh aloe gel undergoes the most meticulous manual inspection of the entire production line. Under bright white light, workers use their eyes and bare hands to assess the elasticity, smoothness, and clarity of each piece. Only those that are flat, transparent, and free of any yellow sap are approved for the next stage. On average, each worker can inspect over 1,500 pieces of gel per hour. Yet, only about 80% meet the required standards to move on to the refining stage, where they are transformed into premium-grade ingredients for food and cosmetics. And once everything is perfectly clean, the crystal-clear gel sheets are sent straight to the grinding stage, where they are completely transformed from their original form into a smooth, viscous raw juice. From here, the gel is pumped through a high-temperature, short-time HTST pasteurization system. At 80 degrees Celsius for just 30 to 45 seconds, all bacteria and organic impurities are eliminated, while the active enzymes and heat-sensitive vitamins retain their natural biological structure. This is the key that makes aloe gel both perfectly safe and biologically potent, preserving its natural regenerative properties. At the same time, vitamin C is added to prevent oxidation and stabilize the gel's natural color, keeping it clear and bright even after exposure to air. Immediately after pasteurization, the purified aloe gel is transferred to an aseptic filling machine, where robots automatically open multi-layer metal bags, fill them with gel, seal them tightly, and apply spill-proof packaging, all without any contact with air. Each container holds 200 to 250 liters of gel, equivalent to the extract from over 1,000 fresh aloe leaves. The sealed tanks are then automatically lifted and transported to the quality control area, where the final stage of scientific refinement begins. In the internal laboratory, 20 to 25 samples of aloe gel, representing the entire production line, are randomly selected and analyzed each day. Technicians perform a series of precise measurements, checking pH, clarity, color, viscosity, and determining polysaccharide content, the key compound responsible for the gel's moisturizing properties. They also assess enzyme activity to ensure that the product retains the natural bioenergy of fresh aloe. The entire inspection process takes about 1 hour to complete. Only batches that meet the 99.9% pure aloe gel standard receive the official quality certification, marking them ready for the final stage of processing before being distributed to markets worldwide. In the beverage production line, pure aloe gel is diluted, clarified, and blended with sugar, natural flavors, or vitamins to create its signature refreshing taste. After heat treatment, the mixture is aseptically filled into PET or glass bottles, moving continuously along the conveyor. Within seconds, each bottle is filled, capped, labeled, and date-stamped before being automatically packed and wrapped by robots, thanks to the HTST pasteurization and aseptic filling process. Aloe drinks have a longer shelf life than most fruit beverages, lasting 12 to 18 months at room temperature, while preserving the color, flavor, and natural bioactivity of the gel. And the remaining portion, the highest purity aloe gel, is directed to the cosmetic production line, where the process differs entirely from that of beverage manufacturing. Here the gel is concentrated, refined, and adjusted for viscosity before being blended with signature active ingredients unique to each brand. Today, champagne is often misused as a generic term for any sparkling wine at weddings, festivals, or sports celebrations. But few realize that only sparkling wines made from grapes grown in the Champagne region, crafted under hundreds of strict regulations, truly earn the prestigious AOC Champagne label, with prices reaching thousands of euros, often 5 to 10 times higher than Italian Prosecco or Spanish Cava. Currently, the giants ruling the sparkling wine world include Moët & Chandon, Veuve Clicquot, and Louis Rittera, with their most luxurious cuvées such as Dom Pérignon, La Grande Dame, and Cristal, ultimate icons of sophistication in the champagne universe. Unlike red wine, with its warmth and lingering finish on the palate, champagne enchants with its explosion of millions of bubbles, carrying the pure aromas of green apple, ripe pear, and a hint of toasted bread. Yet, this is but a single brushstroke in the grand portrait of champagne. Now, let us take you to the very first stop, the vineyards at harvest season, where every legendary bottle of sparkling wine begins its journey. One of the key reasons behind champagne's timeless value lies in its grapes. Among the hundreds of wine grape varieties across the world, only Chardonnay and Pinot Noir stand out as the most suitable candidates, providing the acidity, purity, and depth of flavor essential to this sparkling wine. And remarkably, even when these same grapes are grown in Burgundy, Bordeaux, or California, they can never replicate the true taste of champagne. Only the region's distinctive chalky soils impart that unique minerality, freshness, and balance. In other words, nature itself has appointed Champagne as the birthplace of this legendary sparkling wine. But even the finest grapes are not enough. Across tens of thousands of hectares, every single Champagne must be harvested entirely by hand. This is not merely a regulation, but a sacred ritual. The official start of harvest can only be declared by a technical committee, after closely monitoring physiological ripeness, sugar levels, acidity, seed and skin condition, and the taste of the pulp. Only when all these factors reach the perfect balance is each village granted permission to begin picking. From the break of dawn, hundreds of workers spread across the vineyards. With sharp, specialized shears, they carefully snip each cluster as though handling a treasure, placing it gently into shallow wooden crates to avoid crushing. To qualify, the grapes must be intact, neither bruised nor wilted, selected right in the vineyard through the keen eyes and seasoned hands of experienced pickers. Immediately afterward, each crate is labeled with the vintage, vineyard name, and exact origin, ensuring absolute transparency and traceability. Unlike red wine, where grapes are typically crushed and fermented with their skins to extract color and tannins, Champagne begins with absolute purity. Immediately after harvest and sorting, the fresh clusters must be transported to the press house as quickly as possible, keeping the berries intact to prevent oxidation and avoid any bitterness from the seeds or skins. What makes Champagne unique is that the grapes are always pressed whole, in bunches. This long-standing tradition is closely tied to the classic coquard or basket presses, designed to spread the clusters evenly and apply only gentle pressure. Today, many producers have adopted modern pneumatic presses, which allow for more precise pressure control while still honoring the philosophy of pressing, not crushing. This stage is the cornerstone of the Champagne method, pressing with utmost delicacy to obtain the clearest, purest juice, pure enough to make white wine even from red grapes. It is the very first step, and also the reason why Champagne houses guard their pressing techniques as a vital trade secret. After pressing, the grape must undergo clarification for at least 12 to 24 hours. Winemakers may choose oak barrels, which add richness, subtle notes of butter and vanilla, and a rounded structure, particularly favored in prestigious vintage champagnes. For non-vintage cuvées, however, the juice is usually kept in stainless steel tanks to preserve freshness, purity, and the wine's characteristic fruitiness. This settling process allows solid particles, soil residues, and grape skin fragments to sink to the bottom, leaving behind a crystal-clear juice, an essential preparation before fermentation begins. The first fermentation takes place much like that of still wine. Natural or added yeasts convert sugar into alcohol and CO2. Since the process occurs in open vessels, the CO2 escapes, leaving behind a young wine with an alcohol content of around 11%. At this stage, it is not yet champagne, but merely the base wine, the overture before the grand symphony that is yet to come. If champagne were a symphony, blending would be its most crucial act of harmony. After the first fermentation, each vat of base wine carries its own character and flavor, shaped by the grape variety, the vintage, the terroir, and the method of maturation. The task of the cellar master, the maestro of the cellar, is to taste hundreds of these different base wines and combine them in perfect proportion. This process demands refinement, experience, and an extraordinary memory of taste. The goal, to ensure that every bottle of champagne expresses the house's signature style, no matter whether the year's weather was generous or unforgiving. Once blended, the base wine is transferred into special glass bottles and swiftly sealed with a steel cap, much like a beer bottle. It is here that the magic begins. The yeast starts consuming the added sugar, producing alcohol and CO2. This time, however, with the bottle tightly sealed, the gas cannot escape. it dissolves into the liquid, creating the signature effervescence of champagne. Beyond the bubbles, this second fermentation also generates lees, spent yeast cells that, as they break down, release complex organic compounds. These impart aromas of toasted bread, roasted nuts, and baked butter. Layers of flavor found only in truly fine champagne. By law, non-vintage champagne must rest in the cellar for at least 15 months, while vintage champagne requires a minimum of 3 years. In practice, many producers age their wines far longer. 5, 7, even 10 years, unlocking greater depth and complexity. After sufficient aging, the bottles of champagne enter the riddling or remuage stage. This traditional technique is designed to collect all the lees into the neck of the bottle. The riddler places the bottles on a wooden rack with angled holes, called a pupitre, and gently rotates each bottle a quarter turn every day while gradually increasing its tilt. Over the course of several weeks, the sediment slowly settles into the neck near the cap. Today, many champagne houses use gyropalettes, automated rotating machines to save time and labor. Yet in prestigious cellars, the art of hand riddling is still preserved, honored as a symbol of tradition. Riddling is a crucial step in preparing the bottles for the next stage, degorgement, the removal of the sediment. This is the magical moment. The neck of the bottle, where the lees have collected, is plunged into a deep freezing solution, solidifying the sediment into a small ice plug. When the cap is removed, the pressure of the CO2 forcefully ejects the plug, carrying the lees out with it. The result is a crystal clear champagne, pure and brilliant, though now slightly reduced in volume. To restore the lost liquid, the winemaker adds a mixture known as liqueur d'expédition, composed of base wine and a precise amount of sugar. This final touch defines the champagne's style: brut nature, extra brut, brut, sec, demi-sec, or doux. The level of sugar determines the taste profile, offering different sensory experiences for every connoisseur. At the same time, the artistry behind crafting the cork and wire cage, the silent gatekeepers of champagne, is equally vital. Unlike ordinary wine corks, a champagne cork is composed of several layers of natural oak bark, strong enough to withstand pressure 3 times greater than that inside a car tire. The wire cage, or muselet, serves as a suit of armor, fastening the cork securely and preventing it from bursting out under the force of the gas. Together, this duo has become an enduring symbol of champagne. Steadfast and reliable, yet irresistibly enchanting the moment they are released, marking the opening of a celebration and the beginning of joy. And when everything is complete, each bottle of champagne is sealed with a cork and secured by its wire cage. This iconic image has become inseparable from champagne itself, a universal symbol of celebration and festivity around the world. The bottles are then left to rest for several more months in the cellar, allowing the flavors to harmonize and stabilize. At last, as they emerge from the darkness into the light, champagne is ready to carry within it the legacy of years of meticulous craftsmanship. From the vineyard to the cellar, from years of meticulous aging to the resounding pop of the cork, champagne is not merely a wine, it is the very essence of French artistry, a symbol of luxury and celebration. Every bubble carries the resonance of tradition, the precision of craftsmanship, and the promise of unforgettable moments. To open a bottle of champagne is not simply to drink, but to partake in an eternal ritual of elegance. And to truly grasp this paradoxical journey, let us follow from the silvery groves to the harvest itself, where the secrets of olives first begin to unfold. Each year, the olive harvest stretches from early autumn to late winter. When the fruits ripen, glossy and full of oil and nutrients, no grower dares to miss this golden moment. But to turn that season of abundance into reality, human hands alone are not enough. In super high-density olive orchards, the only viable alternative to the impossible task of hand-picking is the massive straddle harvester, a machine designed like a moving tunnel that engulfs entire rows of trees. With its gripping and shaking system, the machine sweeps along the row, shaking olives down in torrents. The fruits drop into catch trays, then move straight onto conveyor belts. Leaves and twigs are sucked up and filtered out inside the machine, leaving only clean olives ready to be funneled into accompanying storage bins. Thanks to this process, entire rows can be harvested clean in just minutes. Dozens of times faster than hand-picking, while reducing the risk of fruit touching the ground by up to 95%, thus preserving quality. However, to use this machine, olive trees must be planted in perfectly straight, orderly rows. So what about smaller olive groves, just a few dozen hectares in size? The main solution is the tree shaker. This machine works quite simply. A hydraulic arm grips the tree trunk tightly and shakes it vigorously, causing the olives to fall all at once. Below, large nets are spread out to catch the fruits, which farmers then gather up. This method is well suited for older olive groves, where trees are spaced nearly 10 meters apart, with straight trunks, strong roots, and a large enough diameter for a firm grip. However, the ground also needs to be relatively flat for the machine to operate efficiently. A single tree that would take 4 or 5 people nearly an hour to pick by hand can now be harvested in less than a minute. Still, the intense shaking can cause leaves to fall, young branches to snap, and in the long run, may weaken the tree. For this reason, many orchards opt for a combination, using hand poles to select fruits at the perfect ripeness while keeping the trees healthy, and at the same time relying on machines to speed up the harvest. Yet whether by human hands or by machines, the key to survival after harvest is speed. Olives must be taken to the mill immediately, because just a few hours' delay triggers oxidation. Aromas begin to fade, bitterness rises, and quality quickly declines. When crates of olives arrive, forklifts receive them and carefully pour them into the intake hopper. Here, dry leaves and twigs are removed in the first step. Only those that pass the test continue along the conveyor belt, beginning a more thorough cleaning process. At the other end, a chilled, bubbling tank awaits the olives. The swirling water washes away soil and dust clinging to their skins. Then a row of overhead sprayers rains down like a gentle shower, leaving each fruit plump, fresh, and gleaming, fully prepared for its transformation before reaching the consumer. Olives are naturally sharp and bitter, so to make them edible, people rely on salt and fermentation. That is why the very first step is always traditional debitoring. Immediately afterward, the fruits are placed into giant brine tanks, where they rest for 3 to 4 months to undergo natural fermentation. During this time, lactic acid bacteria quietly mellow the harsh flavor, while adding a subtle tanginess and the signature crunch, the foundation for every stage of processing that follows. Once fermentation is complete, the olives are heat-treated to stabilize their texture and flavor before moving on to size grading. This step not only eliminates cracked, damaged, or low-quality fruits, but also ensures perfect uniformity for stuffing and packaging. Such consistency not only enhances the product's visual appeal when it reaches consumers, but also preserves its high commercial value on the market. On modern production lines, olive pits are removed and replaced with flavorful fillings such as chili, almonds, lemon, or rich pâté. Immediately after, the fruits pass through a washing system and a densimeter to remove any remaining pit fragments and broken olives. This washing stage not only cleans the product but also balances salinity and softens the sharp acidity, ensuring the uniform taste required before packaging. They are then moved to the final stage, packaging. The fruits are arranged in glass jars or metal cans, where filling machines precisely adjust the volume, adding brine and seasonings tailored to each market's preference. The US tends to favor larger cans with bold flavors. Japan prefers smaller jars with milder tastes, while Europe remains loyal to its traditional style. Finally, the products are vacuum sealed, sterilized on-site, and stacked on pallets, ready to embark on journeys that carry them across the globe. To turn olives into oil, the first step is crushing. Inside a sealed chamber, a rotating shaft with steel hammers smashes the flesh, skin, and pits. If the pits crack just right, they add flavor and texture. Too much, and the oil turns harshly bitter. In just half an hour, 5 tons of olives become a thick paste, a blend of oil, water, and solids. But this paste can't be pressed yet. It must go through malaxation, a slow mixing process lasting 20 to 40 minutes at a warm temperature. This allows tiny droplets of oil to merge into larger ones, ready for separation, while natural enzymes weave notes of grass, apple, pepper, and almond. Many describe this as the olive's meditative state before they transform in the next stage of extraction. Inside the state-of-the-art decanter, a screw conveyor turns slowly but firmly, pressing and pushing the olive paste into a high-speed spin. Thanks to centrifugal force, the oil, being lighter, separates completely from the water and solid pulp. From here, the first streams of raw olive oil begin to flow. But don't mistake it for shimmering golden right away. Freshly extracted, the oil is often emerald green, slightly cloudy, and only later turns clear and golden after filtering. At this stage, some producers filter further to remove fine particles, achieving a crystal clear hue. Others prefer to leave a touch of rustic character for a richer flavor. Either way, the end result is the same: luscious drops of liquid essence, the distilled reward of a painstaking journey. In the final stage, each glass bottle is filled with silky oil, capped tightly as it spins through sealing machines, then glides past labeling lines and inspection lights. A quick heat seal sterilization closes the process before sturdy cartons are packed and sealed. From there, the purest bottles of olive oil are ready to travel into supermarkets, restaurants, and kitchens across the globe, completing the journey from bitter fruit on the branch to the flavor inseparable from Mediterranean cuisine. But not every olive ends up that way. Guess what happens if the paste, instead of going to oil extraction, is cooked with caustic soda and water? This is the crucial difference between making oil and making soap. It's not just boiling oil. The saponification reaction is set in motion. Under high heat, fat bonds break apart, then reform into soap. For 3 days, the mixture must be stirred constantly to prevent scorching, with the temperature kept steady so the reaction won't be interrupted. There's also a small but vital trick. Sprinkle dry soap powder on the floor beforehand, so when the vat is drained, the hot solid mass won't stick to the cement. At first, the mixture is thin and pale, then it thickens, darkens to deep green, and turns viscous like boiling honey. That's the moment the oil has died, reborn as soft, pure soap, ready for the next stage. When cooking is done, thick streams of hot, steaming soap spill out, spreading into a glossy green carpet about 6 centimeters thick across the floor. It is then leveled with simple tools to create a smooth surface. The task may look easy, but it's not. Too much force and the soap shifts, too little and the surface ripples. Only experienced hands can find the just right balance. The soap block continues to radiate warmth like an ember, slowly cooling and hardening day by day into a green stone slab. Temperature and humidity in the workshop must be perfectly balanced, or the whole batch risks cracking or turning sticky. Marking and stamping come next, the decisive step that transforms the raw block into a finished product, both perfectly shaped and branded. Before dividing it, workers dust the surface with fine powder to prevent sticking, then stretch dyed cords across it in 7 by 7 centimeter squares, like laying out a giant chessboard. Once the grid is set, cutting begins, the final step that turns the massive slab into neat little bars ready for use. Workers operate a rake-like cutting frame, long and heavy, strung with taut wires. They don't just use their arms, they lean in with their whole bodies, pressing down to slice through the dense 6 centimeter thick soap. Each pull marks a sharp boundary, splitting the broad slab into even rows of perfect squares. And from there, each rustic block of soap takes on the form of a finished product. After cutting and stamping, the soap bars can't be packed right away. They must go through a long resting stage. Workers stack them into hollow towers, layer upon layer, so the air can circulate evenly. For months, usually 3 to 6, the soap remains still, slowly releasing moisture and hardening day by day. This period decides everything. When cured properly, the bars are dry, solid, and long-lasting, able to endure for years without spoiling. But rush the process, and the soap turns soft, fragile, and quick to wear away. That's why this stage is seen as the final discipline, where each bar of soap completes its transformation before entering the market. So next time you cook with olive oil, savor a pickled olive, or wash with that smooth green bar, remember the extraordinary journey behind it, a story of how people turn bitterness into a timeless treasure. Everything begins with a step that may seem simple, yet it is a critical phase for anyone hoping to achieve a bountiful harvest: seed selection. In the semi-arid regions of Mexico, where scorching heat is part of daily life, choosing the right variety is never left to chance. Farmers carefully observe the mother plants from previous seasons, looking for cactus bushes that grow vigorously, resist pests, have thick pads, and bear sweet fruit. From these, they select mature pads that are aged but not yet woody. These pads are then detached and left to dry for a few days, allowing the cut to seal and reducing the risk of rot before replanting. Unlike most crops, cactus nopal isn't propagated by seed, but through vegetative reproduction. From a single juicy pad, a whole new generation can emerge. This isn't just a traditional method, it's how people have learned to be patient, to understand the soil and the plant, and to quietly sow into dry earth a belief that life will return. Once the planting pads are ready, farmers move on to the next crucial step: preparing the soil, the foundation that will nurture an entire new generation under the sun and wind. Although cactus is renowned for its drought tolerance, the soil still needs to be plowed 20 to 30 centimeters deep to break up compacted layers and allow young roots to spread freely. Next, aged manure, typically from cows or chickens, is added to enrich the soil and help retain moisture. In areas with acidic or saline soils, rice straw ash and lime are used to balance the pH. They don't try to force fertility into the land. Instead, they simply create conditions that are just enough. Enough for the plant to anchor, enough for the roots to find water when drought strikes. Because in that restraint lies resilience, the kind that allows new life to take root and grow stronger. Once the soil has been thoroughly tilled and the planting pads have been dried just enough to seal the cut ends, preventing rot while preserving vitality, farmers begin the planting process. Each pad is placed at an angle of about 60 degrees, buried 5 to 10 centimeters deep in the loosened soil. This depth is just enough to secure the base while allowing young roots to easily anchor and grow steadily. As the pads settle into the earth and begin to awaken life within, growers resist the urge to water immediately. For the first 2 weeks, the soil is left dry, encouraging the roots to stretch deeper in search of moisture hidden in lower layers, a natural response that helps the plant establish a stronger foothold in harsh environments. Only when new shoots begin to emerge, those first subtle signs of life, does irrigation begin. Water is applied sparingly, just enough to moisten the soil without making the plant dependent on external sources. With cactus, it's not about how much water is given, but when it arrives, a perfectly timed nudge that tells the young plant it is ready to thrive in a dry and demanding world. When the dry season lingers long enough and the sun has scorched the edges of each cactus pad to a golden hue, the prickly pears begin to ripen, changing from green to amber, then to deep red, swollen as if they've gathered the desert sunlight beneath their delicate skins. This marks the start of the first harvest, a task that must be done gently yet cautiously, as these fruits are both fragile and covered in nearly invisible hair-like spines. Harvesting usually takes place in the early morning when the sun is already casting its light across the desert. Farmers dress in long sleeves, gloves, and wide-brimmed hats to shield themselves, carefully stepping between rows of spiny plants. Using steel tongs or curved knives, they skillfully twist each fruit, detaching it from the pad with a light motion, taking care not to tear the thin skin or release the ultra-fine spines that can lodge deep in the skin and cause hours of irritation. Each fruit, once picked, is gently dropped into bamboo baskets or plastic tubs kept nearby, making it easy to move through the rows while minimizing handling and contact. Once the last prickly pears have been gathered, farmers return to a familiar rhythm, harvesting the nopal pads, the tender green stems often referred to as the lungs of the cactus. What seems like a simple task actually demands great precision, as even a slight miscut can damage the mother plant and disrupt its entire growth cycle. The selected pads must not be too old or woody. Their surface should still be smooth, evenly thick, and tinged with that signature jade green. With a razor-sharp knife, the worker makes a swift yet delicate cut close to the base, carefully avoiding the bud eyes. Tiny growth points where even a small scratch can prevent new shoots from sprouting. Every cut must be clean, exact, as if the cutter understands the biological rhythm pulsing beneath those layers of spines. Roughly every 7 to 10 days, new pads emerge, and the cycle repeats, like a steady breath across the desert landscape. At larger farms, semi-automated machines are now used for harvesting, reaching speeds of 500 to 700 kilograms per hour, resembling combine harvesters in arid terrain. Yet, not every field is flat, and not every cactus grows in neat rows. In rugged hillsides where the earth cracks like dried skin and plants grow wild, each cut is still entrusted to human hands, where technique, intuition, and years of experience preserve something no machine can replicate: the art of cutting to keep life alive. Immediately after harvest, both cactus pads and fruits are carefully stacked into ventilated plastic crates and quickly transported to the processing facility. The transport must be completed within the same day to prevent sun exposure from dehydrating the produce or causing the sap to ferment, since just a few hours under the heat can significantly alter the quality. For such perishable crops, speed and gentle handling are critical to preserving freshness. At the processing facility, crates are unloaded by hand or with small forklifts and neatly arranged into batches in the staging area. The space is cool, sheltered, and has clean flooring, helping to reduce temperature shock as the produce transitions from intense sun to shade. Each pad is then manually sorted, rinsed with cold water, gently despined, and left to drain for about 30 minutes. Pads that meet quality standards are packed according to their destination. Whole pads for restaurants, sliced portions for supermarkets. Every package is labeled with traceability information and stored in cold rooms at 4 to 8 degrees Celsius, cool enough to preserve the vibrant green color, yet mild enough to retain the pad's natural flavor. Nopal pads that don't meet commercial standards are set aside for a different purpose, becoming a green source of nutrition for livestock, especially cattle and buffalo during the dry season. After being washed and despined, the pads are fed into specialized shredders, where they are either sliced into 2 to 4 centimeter strips or ground into a soft, wet mash that's easy to digest. At larger farms, chopped straw, sugarcane pulp, or dried grass is often mixed in to balance nutrients and increase roughage. Modern machines can process 1 to 1.5 tons of cactus pads per hour, an impressive output considering that in many semi-arid regions, this is the main source of feed keeping livestock alive through the dry season. With a water content of up to 90% and rich in potassium, calcium, and natural mucilage, Nopal helps animals stay hydrated, improves digestion, and reduces heat stress. In sun-scorched areas where even grass withers, Nopal becomes a living water tank for livestock, quietly feeding and hydrating herds without a single drop of rain. After a short journey from field to facility, the prickly pears rest quietly in crates, as if returning from a harsh expedition. Their skins remain plump and vibrant, yet are coated in dust and lined with fine spines, so delicate that a single touch might release an invisible cloud of needles, sharp as the desert's thoughts. To cleanse this natural armor, the fruits pass through soft brushes, rotating slowly under cool water, where each spine falls away like the last grain of sand slipping from the hand of the wind. Water pressure, rotation speed, the tilt of the conveyor belt, everything is calibrated not just by machines, but by experience. For the skin of the prickly pear is as fragile as the final breath of ripeness on the surface of fruit. On large farms, a single machine can process 400 to 600 kilograms of fruit per hour. Yet speed is never prioritized over precision, because even the smallest scratch can begin the fruit's decline within hours. Once the dust and fine spines have been removed, the prickly pears move on to their final stage, packaging. Workers select the fruit using both sight and experience, not just to pick the most attractive ones, but to ensure perfect ripeness and firmness. Fruits that meet the standard are carefully arranged in ventilated trays or mesh bags, labeled with their origin and packing date as a promise of quality. Finally, they are placed in cold storage at 8 to 10 degrees Celsius to preserve their freshness and flavor all the way to the consumer's hands. In addition to daily fresh consumption, a significant portion of prickly pears is sent to processing plants, where the ripe, succulent fruits continue their transformation into a variety of high-value products. After being peeled, either manually or using semi-automated machines, the fruits are deseeded and fed into cold press extractors. With a capacity of 500 to 800 kilograms of raw fruit per hour, these systems can handle dozens of tons each day while preserving the purity of the juice. The result is a vibrant pink-orange liquid, glowing with a natural radiance, as if infused with the essence of dry soil, scorching winds, and late-season rains. This isn't just juice, it's a nutrient-rich concentrate, packed with vitamin C, flavonoids, and especially betalains, powerful antioxidants with anti-inflammatory properties up to 3 times stronger than those found in beets. Though not every drop of cactus juice ends its journey as a refreshing drink, some are reserved for a quieter transformation into wine. In cold steel tanks, the vibrant pink-orange liquid undergoes natural fermentation over 7 to 10 days, guided by probiotics and steady temperatures. Once the wine has matured, it is filtered and left to rest, gradually turning into a clear ruby-red hue. A single sip reveals a delicate sweetness that touches the tip of the tongue, carrying the essence of dry earth, blazing sun, and the art of finding pleasure amid harshness.